Massive land movement in Rancho Palos Verdes. It is not good news.
Evacuation warnings are in effect for about 140 homes, and electricity has been cut off indefinitely for others.
The landslide area is about a mile wide. Right now, parts of that landslide are moving 50 feet per year, or about 1 foot per week. It's actually the largest landslide complex in North America.
What's crazy is you can come out here every day and things change.
If you'd come yesterday, all of that dirt wouldn't have been there. All of this was level.
It was all flat.
It was all flat. Those pieces of grass there were attached to these pieces here. So that whole area has slipped down and away.
Oh, they were going down there.
So this is our house.
California is experiencing an unprecedented active landslide in the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. Governor Gavin Newsom has just declared a state of emergency for the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. Today, we head out to the city to see how the residents are doing and what's happening there. We also sit down with the mayor, public works director, and geologist to see what the city is doing to mitigate this landslide.
This is a deeper movement because it's never done this before. We're talking about a square mile of area that is moving into the ocean, basically.
I'm Siama Korami. Welcome to California Insider.
This is the major fissure at the top. There's still some more smaller fissures up above.
Wow.
But this has all happened since the beginning of the year. All of this was level.
It was all flat.
It was all flat, and there was a huge, play area with slides and swings and that. And that's all been taken out. This has gone down 50 feet or more.
That wall used to be above, see where the retaining wall is there?
Yeah.
It used to be about 2 feet above the road here, it sloped down. I felt this about 2 feet
Above the road. It was here.
Right.
Well.
So that grass there was attached to this grass here. The water pipes down here used to be below the ground, probably 4 to 6 feet below the ground. And section by section now, Cal Water is bringing the pipes above ground so that the landslide doesn't affect them. And also so that they're inspectable. But since they've put this water pipe in, we've gone from having a break every couple days of the water pipes to
Underground or
underground
Yeah.
to above ground 0. So the water here comes from the top of the hill. The residents still have water. I've got a bulldozer that is actually leveling out my driveway. And so you can see all the cut that we've done there is fill so that we can actually get down the driveway. This is our house. Our house, as you can see it through there. And because you can just barely see the house, that's why we like to live here. My house is lucky enough that it's just starting to move. When we talk about stability in Portuguese Bend, we talk about the blocks of land that are moving. And if you're in a block of land and your house is in the middle, it's hard to know that you're moving. Your house is doing just fine. But if your house happens to be in between blocks, the land will just rip it apart.
So it's a little bit like being on an iceberg. If you're on an iceberg that's moving, everything's fine. You could be floating in the middle of the ocean and life is grand. You see no major impact.
So you don't have to be rich to live here. It's not cheap, but this whole hill was basically formed by people that were engineers working for, well, they didn't even call it aerospace. It was the aircraft industry. Back when my father came out here in '64 to work for Douglas Aircraft. We've actually lived in the neighborhood here since 1999. And so we're not quite newcomers, but we're not old timers yet either.
John, it's great to have you on back. Welcome back.
No, thanks for having me. It's an important time for our city.
John, your city is facing some challenging times. There's some landslides going on that are horrifying for the residents. Can you tell us what's happening in your city?
Right. Well, in our city, we've had an active landslide since 1956. It's a landslide complex, so there's 5 different landslides within one complex. 4 of those are in the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. One is in Rolling Hills, which is up above our city. And
which is in the county of LA, right?
And it's all in the county of Los Angeles. So our peninsula, Palos Verdes Peninsula, is actually in the southwest part of Los Angeles County. What's happening now is, even though we've had a lot of movement since 1956, that movement's been at the most about 5 feet per year in the center part of the landslide. Over the last couple of years, due to all the rainfall, that accelerated by a 10x multiplier. So right now, parts of that landslide are moving 50 feet per year, or about 1 foot per week.
50 feet per year?
It is, 50 feet per year, and that's horizontally, but it also moves vertically. So what residents had been used to having in their neighborhood and were adaptable to, when you have this much additional movement, they cannot be adaptable to it, and plus they're having their utilities shut off, their gas service, their electric power service. The roads have been opening up, they're impassable. This all started at the end of July when 135 homes in the Portuguese Bend area, the center area, lost gas service. And they were given a check by Southern California Gas for $2,500 to do a little bit of that conversion, whether it be to bring in propane tanks or to just convert those gas appliances to electric appliances. But since that time, the power's been shut off. Southern California Edison and their poles, which are moving and wires are stretching and snapping, they've shut off power, and they've had probably 3 different times now where they've shut off power, and now the gas has shut off more service to homes. So like you said, there's several hundred homes now that have lost both gas and electrical service.
So these are in the area that's severely impacted, but what about other areas? How many homes are in the other areas that are now starting to move to?
Right. Well, in some of those homes that I mentioned that lost gas and power service are a little bit outside of the areas that are moving, and the reason that is because the lines that actually feed the gas service or feed the electric service come in through those areas that are moving. So they get affected as well. So even though their homes aren't moving, they still have power and gas shut off. And if you can imagine your home and how many things actually run off of both gas and electric power, it's pretty much everything. I mean, other than the phone service and cable TV, really that's your primary utility service that you have. So it's mostly the homes that are within the landslide area. The landslide area is about a mile wide. It's about 680 acres. So it's a pretty substantial size complex, and it's actually the largest landslide complex in North America. So it's a big deal.
And now what are the residents doing about it? I mean, it's very hard to live without power, right?
Right now, the short-term fix is they're out buying generators. Some of them are installing more solar panels, batteries for their homes so that they can store the solar energy that they're gathering through the summer months right now. Right now it's been very sunny, very hot, and so that's actually good for drying out the area and also providing solar power. The city has been looking for off-grid solutions, so I think that ultimately is going to be the direction we need to go so we take pressure off our gas and electric company as their systems have been under stress with this landslide movement.
Now, where is it going? It's been sliding 50 feet per year now, and it says accelerated.
I hate to make predictions because it's all rainfall related, and even though we were told that this upcoming rainy season might not be as severe as the last 2, nobody can predict Mother Nature. So I think we need to assume the worst, and I think we need to plan for the worst. There's things we could do engineering-wise out there, and I think we should continue to push forward with those.
Now, does insurance cover this for your residents?
Well, I think typically the answer is no. I think most homeowners do not have any type of landslide coverage. Every homeowner should call their agent and make sure that the answer is no. Like, there might be some policies that are older policies where maybe landslides were written out of them in later years, but if you have an older policy, there might be some opportunities in there to recover some from your current insurance policy. So I don't want to make blanket statements. I think every homeowner should check with their policy and check with their insurance agents to make sure that's the case. But I think typically the answer is there is no insurance for landslide damages.
John, also there are some comments about the city allowing to develop in these areas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, unfortunately, there's different areas in that Portuguese landslide complex. I had mentioned that there's the Seaview community where there really wasn't any movement. It had been mapped that there was a potential landslide boundary through there. And part of that Seaview community is part of the Klondike Canyon Landslide Abatement District. But that community, that had not been moving at all. So the last couple of years showed us that enough rainfall can change that, and it has. So that's unfortunate. There's other areas that are in the Portuguese Bend area. Some of those homes have been out there well before the city was even created in 1973. And then there's another area in that Portuguese Bend area where the property owners wanted to develop and build, and the city actually told them no. And those property owners sued the city with their geologists, and they convinced a judge that it would be safe to build out there. So that community ended up signing waivers to the city saying they understood the risks and they're willing to take those risks. So it's a combination of different areas, but there was an area where the city said, we don't believe that's safe, and we ended up getting sued, and we were forced to process their housing permits in those areas.
Now, John, there's been a lot of media coverage of this, and Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency. Janice Hans, your county supervisor, declared some funding to help you guys out. What's being done about this?
Well, we appreciate that the county supervisor, Janice Hahn, has pledged $5 million. We haven't seen the money yet, unfortunately. So these sort of pledges or promises are good, but all this money is coming out of the city coffers right now. So it really doesn't mean anything until we get actual money in hand. We believe we will. We just haven't. Same with the federal government. We know that FEMA has, through our congressional office with Ted Lieu, has committed monies to our city. And those are, much of that money is going to go to the 2 landslide abatement districts to do projects to pick up stormwater and and do dewatering wells. And so I think that that's more of a do the work, send the bill to them, and they get the money back. So there's definitely that, which is great as well. But really the state of California is the door that opens up everything for us. We just had the governor declare a state of emergency. Now, it didn't quite go as far as we wanted it to go, but I think just the wording and the fact that he's declared it for the city of Rancho Palos Verdes is going to be opening up our doors to be able to communicate with the federal government, because the state of California really becomes a gatekeeper. Our city can't just go straight to the Corps of Engineers per se. We have to get kind of a permission from Cal OES, which is the Office of Emergency Services. I know it seems crazy, and when people say bureaucracy, that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, there's always a chain of command, and don't go out and talk to the right person until we tell you it's okay to do that. But you can see that an agency like the Corps of Engineers, where their primary job is to help our military get in and out and be able to have operations in different environments, whether it's the desert or the jungle or marsh area or that. So you can see we have this road that's a mile wide. And the Army Corps is used to figuring out ways to create roads and bridges and other things. We would love to put them on that problem, because we're spending probably $3 million a year repaving it with asphalt over and over again. It's madness, and it's still
because it's moving.
It's moving, and anyone that's been driven on Palos Verdes Drive South out there through the landslide area, if you're driving eastbound, there's an area we affectionately call the ski jump. And we warn you, but if you're going more than 15 miles an hour, you're going to get air in your car, and you're going to have some heavy damage. And I've seen some cars be pretty heavily damaged. So we need the expertise of the federal government and the state government, but funding has been a little bit slow at this point.
And you are having some efforts yourself. You're trying to get help from Elon Musk and others. Can you tell us what you're trying to do?
Well, absolutely. I mean, our city is a contract city, so we're used to having a small city staff of about 100 people, and then the services expertise like the sheriff's department, the county fire, our landscape people, our engineer, many of our engineers that do design work. We're used to hiring experts. And so when it comes to kind of this off-grid technology, the first thought is, Tesla Energy. You see the cars driving all over the place now. And also Elon Musk. You think of him, he's an innovator. He's got the Boring Company, he's got Starlink, he's got Tesla Energy, Tesla cars. So why not? Let's reach out to him. And so we wrote him a letter telling him, you know, we're getting gas shut off and power shut off, and we could use your help. And within 3 days of writing to him, they wrote back, they contacted me. Within a week after that, I had a meeting with 6 of their engineers and executives. In the meantime, other companies were starting to contact me as well. Other off-grid battery solar companies were contacting me. So I'm just starting to gather all this great information, and just a few days ago, Tesla Energy presented some solutions, some funding options, and it's great because the lead person with Tesla actually lives in Rolling Hills Estates, which is a neighboring city, so he knows that area. You're going to start to see off-grid technology that's not just diesel generators running power, but you're going to see some elegant solutions out there that are going to be things that change the way the rest of the country and world work as well. So let's move it forward.
Today's episode is sponsored by Monetary Metals. In today's world, traditional savings are often eroded by inflation. While the value of paper money diminishes, silver remains a stable, tangible asset. That's where Monetary Metals comes in. Imagine owning silver and earn 12% annual interest on silver, paid in silver. With Monetary Metals, you're not just holding silver, you're allowing it to grow steadily, increasing your wealth with a tangible real asset. It's a way to diversify and strengthen your portfolio over time. If you're interested in learning more about how to make your silver work for you, click on the link in the description or head to monetary-metals.com. Now let's go back to the interview. You guys have invested a lot in getting this stopped, right? And some people wonder, like, is there a point that it may not be worth it anymore?
Right. I mean, so we talked about the number of homes, the 500 or 600 homes that are in the area, and our overall city has 15,000 or more homes. So fortunately, it's a small minority of homes that are affected, but these are still all our residents, and these residents, many of them are seniors, citizens, there's family with kids, and so you hear a lot of people say out there, well, this is an affluent community, they can pay for it themselves, why do they need our help? We're in crisis, and I think a lot of people don't realize out there that it's not a bunch of rich fat cats that are living out there. You've got a lot of people that bought their homes back in the 1960s, 1970s, and now they're all senior citizens, and this is all they have, and they can't afford those homes anymore. And so where do they go? When you kick them out of their home, and where are they going to go? They become homeless. So it's actually a really dire situation for many of those families. Yeah, there's some residents that have second and third homes, sure. And many of them have moved to those other homes and are going to wait it out until it slows down again and they can go back out and fix their house and be back in there. But that's a small minority of people that are out there. Most of those people are staying out there. That's all they have. The value of their homes are diminished to almost nothing right now. And so our 42,000 residents and the whole Palos Verdes Peninsula, everyone is banding together to help them. We're going to make sure that, and we're going to keep fighting to make sure this landslide gets reduced down to where it's been before, the 5 feet per year. And then once that happens, we're going to rebuild that community, and so we're not going to stop until they get back to normal.
Do you have any other thoughts for our audience?
Well, I'd say that I really appreciate a show like this. You know, California Insider does a great job of delving into the real issues. And I think that it's important that these messages get out there to the whole world, really. Because this is a situation that Rancho Palos Verdes is dealing with now, but it kind of happens everywhere in the world. And there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me and offered help, and other government officials, but a lot of private people, a lot of residents, and so that warms my heart. And I know that we're going to get through this okay, and I'm going to keep fighting. My term as mayor and city council's up soon, but we have a great city council, and more importantly, we have an amazing city staff, and then even more important than that, we have great people that live in our city, and so I believe in them, and we're going to get out of this fine, but right now, we're right in the middle of it. So thank you for having me today.
John Cruikshank, Mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes. It was great to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully your city will recover soon.
We will. Thank you.
Mike, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're a geologist and you've been studying the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, and there's this massive landslide. It's gotten a lot bigger. Can you tell us more about what's going on there?
The landslide is really a combination of several landslides that have been historically active for anywhere from 40 to 70 years almost. Those landslides are known as the Portuguese Bend landslide, Abalone Cove landslide, and the Klondike Canyon landslide. What we're dealing with now is a combination of all three of those on a much deeper failure below ground. And that landslide is moving at unprecedented rates, nothing like the previous known landslides had moved in the past. And it has expanded from what was originally 380 acres to, I think it's probably now over 700 acres of land that's moving. It's moving on the order of about a foot per week right now. It's moving fastest in the middle. I mean, we're talking about a square mile of area that is moving into the ocean, basically. And the center part is moving the fastest. It tends to decrease out to the edges. We have a major roadway going across the lower part of the landslide that is constantly being threatened. So it's a pretty bad situation out there right now based on how much movement we've experienced in the last, pretty much 2 years. It is surprising, but what we realized is this is movement on a deeper landslide surface. We're actually dealing with a bigger landslide that's encompassing the shallower landslides that I referred to earlier. This is sort of new territory because there was no evidence that it moved historically. What was known was that shallower landslides were moving, and they were moving in the wettest years. The Portuguese Bend landslide would probably move 8 to 10 feet per year. But now we're talking about this gross movement of all three of them that's moving, almost 50 feet per year. So you can imagine the kind of destruction that can happen if that rate continues over time. It creates a huge problem up in those neighborhoods and for all of the infrastructure.
How do you think that this other landslide came? So this is deeper, right? What do you think the cause of it?
This landslide was put on a map in 1946, and there have been different interpretations of this prehistoric landslide over the years by different regional mapping agencies and groups. But when I say prehistoric, it is believed that the first landslides started on this side of the peninsula over 700,000 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a very complicated situation because geologically, there have been really three things going on. The peninsula has been rising slowly. This is tectonic uplift. So at one time, Palos Verdes Peninsula was an island in the Pacific Ocean, and it's been uplifting on the Palos Verdes Fault. And so as it comes up at about 1/4 of a millimeter a year, I think is the established rate, as that comes up, it doesn't seem like much, but when you add it up over thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, it's significant. So as it uplifted out of the ocean is eating away at this island, and then once it uplifted far enough, it was connected to the mainland of Los Angeles Basin. So you have that condition going on. Sea level has been fluctuating up and down across a range of a couple of 100 feet over that same time period. There have been glacial stages and interglacial stages on the Earth where sea level has risen and fallen. So these two factors working together, mainly the ocean eating away at the south side of the peninsula as it came up out of the ocean and was growing in height, you had some large-scale landsliding that started on the south side of the peninsula. The reason the landsliding happened is because of the geology. And the geology consists of very weak layers of rock that are tilted towards the south, towards the ocean. And so when you get erosion by wave action at the bottom, you get a lot of rainfall and building up water pressure in the ground. That's what started this sliding in the prehistoric times, hundreds of thousands of years ago. So that kind of laid the groundwork for modern times, and development started out there. I think the first house that was ever built in the landslide area was the Vanderlip Estate in 1920. And my understanding is they were huge landowners, and a large home was built. They had found a good level spot. Well, it turns out that level spot was on an ancient landslide mass, but nobody knew it because there had been no maps produced at the time, and there weren't really people practicing geology the way we do today. That's kind of the early history. This thing has been, basically it's a partial reactivation of a large prehistoric landslide. And the landslides that have been moving historically, Portuguese Bend since 1956, Abalone Cove since about 1978, and the Klondike Canyon landslide since around 1980. Those have been a combination of high rainfall years. The Portuguese Bend landslide also started moving because of a bunch of homes on it that were all on septic systems, so they were all putting water into the ground. And there was grading going on with Crenshaw Boulevard being brought down from the top of the hill, and a lot of dirt was pushed out over the head of the landslide. So there were multiple causes in the beginning as to why this thing started moving, the Portuguese Bend landslide at least. All this development, a lot of the development, these homes that were built up there were built definitely prior to cityhood, when it was under the county jurisdiction, and many of them, probably most of them before modern geotechnical practice.
Before they
today.
knew that there is a landslide here.
Exactly, yes.
So the second one, which is a bigger one, right? The lower one. What are the procedures to stop that? And you guys have been trying to stop the other ones, right? Or slow them down. Has anything worked on the other ones?
Yeah, we've got a lot of empirical evidence over many decades of successfully dewatering portions of these landslides. The Abalone Cove landslide, for example, a significant dewatering program was initiated in the 1980s. A number of dewatering wells were put in, and they were, at one point they were extracting, I think, between 200,000 and 300,000 gallons per day out of that landslide. That's a lot of water. The efforts went on into the 90s, and I believe that by the mid-1990s, the city geologist, Dr. Perry Elig at the time, declared that the Abalone Cove movement had been arrested. It had stopped as a result of the dewatering. Similar things were being done in the Portuguese Bend landslide, but the dewatering wells over there were not as successful because of a little bit different geological conditions. The wells didn't produce that much water. Many of them were damaged after a period of years by the land movement. Similar things were done in the Klondike Canyon area. They've had some dewatering wells down there that have, for the most part, kept things in check, except for a little bit of historical movement, I think, in 2005 after a very, very wet winter. Groundwater levels increased, and so the wells took a while to get that back under control. And then the movement stopped again. But it didn't move anything of the magnitude that we're seeing today. We're talking about something that moved 50 to 100 times less than what we're dealing with today. That's why I say the movement is unprecedented. The big challenge right now is everybody thought they were dealing with a somewhat shallower landslide that was up to 150 feet deep. Now that's not really shallow. I consider 150 feet to be a deep landslide. Now we have discovered that at least a portion of this landslide is moving on something that's almost 300 feet deep. It's 180 feet below sea level at the beach. That's how deep it is. And it is extending offshore out into the Portuguese Bend Cove, bay area right there. The landslide is actually towing up way offshore and producing a new coastline right there. And I have some amazing photos of that I'd like to share with you, because it's sort of a fascinating thing geologically, but it's really showing us that this deep movement is ramping up and coming up through the seafloor and emerging out of the ocean at the toe. That was actually one of the first keys that made me think, wow, this is a deeper movement, because it's never done this before. The other thing we realized, we started seeing cracking and fissuring well outside of the area of the historically mapped boundaries of these landslides. And once we started connecting all the dots, we realized this is a big reactivation of a portion of this prehistoric landslide, and it's much deeper. So we believed that was the case, and then once the drilling started, we confirmed that with the very sophisticated instrumentation that we put into these boreholes that tell us where the movement is occurring, and it actually tells us how fast it's moving. And we can compare that to what we measure at the ground surface with these GPS survey monuments. It's very fascinating because we can know the exact direction and the rate of movement at whatever depth below ground it is.
And then from there you can predict the surface.
Yes. Well, we compare that to what's moving at the surface to make sure, like, are we seeing all of it? Are we deep enough? Are we seeing the whole landslide moving at depth that we see based on the surface monuments? So the theory was there, and now it's been proven with the drilling. But I realized this probably at the beginning of this year.
Did the residents tell you about the cracks? You guys found the cracks and...
Oh, a lot of it was hikers up on the trails. The city has a huge trail network up in the preserve, which is pretty much up behind all the homes. And early on, people were reporting, oh, there's a fissure crossing a trail. So the Park and Rec department asked us to go out and look at it and tell them what was going on. And maybe the first one we looked at, we didn't realize, we knew it was kind of right next to the known landslide area, but we didn't really connect the dots at that time.
How big was it? Was it a big?
Oh, it was maybe 6 inches wide. There was where the ground had pulled apart. The rangers had filled it in a few times, and it maybe pulled apart again. So that was maybe the beginning where we started seeing this. And once we had a few of those, we started putting them on a map. Then we started getting reports from some residents saying, oh, there's a big fissure running across the street over here. We did a lot of mapping, and finally, once we realized this is all connected, it's a much bigger landslide. I think, I don't know if it was December or January where we finally had produced a map that showed, January of this year, where we produced a map that showed, here's now this large area of active land movement.
And when did you see the beach side of it?
That's been more recent. I want to say people were starting to send me photographs of that as early as February and March.
Land is coming
like
up.
something was starting to come up out of the ocean. We've been going out and seeing that every week, every month, and it's been growing and growing. And now there's this huge area offshore of where the original beach was that is now the new coastline. It's crazy.
If you like California Insider and you like to know what's going on in California, make sure to check out Epoch Times. This is a newspaper that started by a group of Chinese Americans because of human rights abuses in China, and now is starting to grow here. Make sure to go to the Epoch Times website and check out the California section, where you can get a lot of fresh perspectives on what's going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. If there is more rain, is that going to create challenges for you guys addressing this?
Absolutely. The rain we certainly don't think we can control Mother Nature. The rain has been crazy for the last 2 years. It's been 200% of normal 2 seasons ago, and about 176% of normal last season. There's not a lot of climatological evidence that we would have 3 wet years in a row. Maybe that's happened once in the last 60 years, 70 years. So we're hoping that we have a dry year. That will help us with this dewatering program. If we don't have so much water getting into the landslide, that's going to prevent all that groundwater recharge going on that happens. In the meantime, we're going to be trying to extract the water that's in the landslide and underneath the landslide, and take other measures that others have already referred to about preventing the water from getting in the first place. So we call this active dewatering, where you're pulling it out of the landslide, and we call it passive dewatering.
Where you don't allow the water.
Keep it from getting in the first place. So those are the primary things that can be done and have been successful on many other huge landslides all over the world in history. That's how they've been stabilized.
Now, do you think other areas in California could get impacted like this? Are there other landslides possibly if we have more rain?
Oh, I think that's always possible. I think that every time we have a weather year in California that's substantially above normal, or even a couple of consecutive years, we do see landslides happening, and we see them happening on the coastline. There are many other examples of big landslides that were triggered by high rainfall and maybe similar conditions like septic systems. The Big Rock Mesa landslide in Malibu is another example. I think it has 270 homes on it. But it has been successfully dewatered and kept in a stable state. In all but maybe the wettest years, it might start to creep a little bit, but it can be kept stable and allow life to go on. But it requires significant funding to monitor and maintain all those dewatering devices. That's the kind of thing we think we can achieve here with this landslide. But we're trying to stabilize something that is extremely deep, 300 feet, and it's very big. It's probably the largest landslide, I'm going to guess, in North America that's got homes on it, that's active. If you calculated the amount of earth that's moving towards the ocean a foot per week, it has tremendous momentum. And so this is something that's very difficult to stop. This is the ultimate challenge for somebody in my profession, to figure out ways to stabilize this landslide. We hope that we can slow it down. We know we can slow it down. We don't know if we can stop it because the Pacific Ocean is always going to be eating away at that front edge of it that comes right down to the water. And we don't know what the weather's going to do in the future.
Mike, do you have any other thoughts for our audience?
I feel for the people that are impacted by this up there. I see what they're going through, and I think it's horrible. There's a lot of devastation in this landslide area, and right now there's a lot of pressure to evaluate, is it safe for people to be living up there still? These people are very resilient. I find the homeowners are very resilient, and it's unfortunate because all these property owners, many of them have lived up there for decades, and some people may have bought homes up there 10 years ago. It's a tragedy what's going on, and I think we have an excellent team of people working on it. I think we've got the best solution on the table right now, and we're going to see if it works.
Was there a point in this process that you figured out there is a different landslide that's much bigger than what's going on in the past? Was there a moment you realized that? Can you tell us what was that moment?
It was the moment when I had spent, after I had spent about a week out in the field mapping a bunch of ground cracking and putting that on a map and seeing the limits of that. When I say connect the dots, if I look at where that is on a map and realize this is way outside the boundaries that have been historically active, and I see this new coastline coming up out of the water at the coast. So I realized we were looking at something that was wider and longer and probably deeper.
Mike Phipps, geologist, it was great to have you on California Insider.
It was great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Ramsey, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You manage the Public Works Department in Rancho Palos Verdes, the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, and you guys are overseeing the roads and other infrastructure. Can you tell us how you're handling that?
Yes, through the landslide is Palos Verdes Drive South, which is an arterial roadway and a very important regional roadway, not just for the city, but for our neighboring jurisdictions as well, and for the area. It carries about roughly 15,000 vehicles per day on average. Because of that, we are monitoring the roadway pretty much on a daily basis and performing detailed inspections at least on a weekly basis. Those inspections identify needed repairs, and we perform repairs on the roadway at least every 2 to 3 weeks. In some cases, even between the 2 to 3 weeks, we come in and do spot repairs, pavement repairs, and things like that. What's happening is, as the land is moving, the roadway is moving as well. And in certain cases, some parts are moving at different rates than others, which creates unique challenges in a roadway. For example, in one area, there's a part that's subsiding at a faster rate than another, so it creates a significant dip. So we try to repair that and smooth that out to keep it passable for vehicles. We also see a lot of fissures that open in the roadway as the land sort of stretches, for lack of a better term. So we go back and we pave those. Sometimes we see significant ripples or dips and other breakups of pavement. It's important to the city to make sure that we continuously repair the roadway and keep it in acceptable condition so that, again, not just city residents, but our neighbors are able to use that roadway as well.
And is there any fear from you that there might be a bigger shift in this roadway now? Or any thoughts about that?
We have a very robust monitoring program for the landslide overall, including the roadway. The city has a program where we have dozens of points, I think it's over 90, maybe 100 points now that we monitor throughout the 680-acre landslide area by GPS. We had been doing that on a regular basis. In earlier days, we were doing it maybe 3 times a year, much fewer points. We accelerated that to monthly, and now we're even moving to every 2 weeks to monitor the movement. And we compare the amount of movement between each reading to determine the rate of movement. Our geologists very carefully study the landslide, and they have told us that they don't foresee a sudden or catastrophic major failure. What we're really dealing with is a slow, relatively in geological terms, slow-moving landslide that's predictable in the way that it moves and in the rate of movement. So we don't foresee any sudden catastrophic movement in the roadway.
What about other infrastructure? I know you don't have control over gas and power, and what about other infrastructure? Do you guys have a say into those, or?
Well, one of the other pieces of infrastructure that comes to mind for me is the sanitary sewers. And actually, on Palos Verdes Drive South, there are sewer trunk lines that are owned, maintained, and operated by Los Angeles County sanitation districts. And those sewer trunk lines serve not just the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, but again, our neighboring jurisdictions as well. And again, this just highlights that the importance of it as a regional and area-wide issue. So the sewer trunk line is a very important piece of infrastructure, and we work very regularly with our partners at LA County Sanitation Districts. I know they inspect it on a daily basis. They coordinate with us very regularly for repairs to keep that system functional. There are other sewers in the other neighborhoods as well, some of which the city owns and maintains and repairs, and others that are maintained and repaired by our partners in Los Angeles County Public Works, sewer maintenance. So we're very much focused on the sewers as well to keep them functional. We work with our partners in other utilities as well. For example, the water utility, Cal Water, we regularly coordinate with them. We talk with them almost on a daily basis to facilitate their repairs and coordinate with them to allow them to keep the water infrastructure functional.
Do the other utilities, like gas and power has been shut down for some of the residents, do they plan to bring them back?
We're told by our utility companies that they intend to keep the infrastructure in place so that at some point they can restore service if the land movement is slowed to a point that they deem acceptable.
What are you guys doing about the situation you're in now?
So right now, the city is very focused on slowing down the land movement by extracting water that's underground. Our geologists and geotechnical engineers have done a very detailed investigation. We recently installed a number of very deep boreholes, test boreholes, going as deep as 300 up to 350 feet. And the purpose of those boreholes is to understand in detail the underground conditions, the soil conditions, the water conditions underground. The landslide, as the geologists describe it to us, landslide movement is facilitated by underground water pressure. You can think of it as a layer of soil under which water is trapped, and that water creates pressure that sort of uplifts and facilitates that land movement. And this is a very simplified concept of what happens. So the city is now focused on installing deep dewatering wells to extract that water and relieve that pressure. We intend to start within the next couple of weeks with the first of those deep dewatering wells, and we will learn more about how effective they are and how much slowdown in movement results from it in the coming weeks. This is a very new approach for the city, although this type of concept has been used in the past, but at a shallower depth. So now we'll move forward with these deep dewatering wells with the goal of slowing down the land movement. And the test boreholes that came before the dewatering wells were very important in helping us understand exactly how we should target this problem, because we had a different approach before that, What we've learned from those test boreholes has now helped us recalibrate our approach to target the problem more specifically. That's one point. Another point is to control surface runoff. We want to prevent additional surface runoff from entering into the ground and making the problem worse.
So the water going in, right?
Exactly. So we are now finalizing a winterization plan that will help us create drainage paths to convey this water and pipes to continue the water to the ocean so that it ends up where it's supposed to go instead of going underground.
How long do you think it will take for you guys to know that what you're planning to do is going to work?
It will likely take weeks for us to better understand the success of the deep dewatering wells as we read the instruments and as we monitor the land movement.
Now, you mentioned you want to have the surface water build infrastructure so that the surface water goes to the ocean. Can you do that by this winter season?
Yes, and we are starting with really field engineering these solutions because the situation on the ground changes on a regular basis. But we have a team of consultants and contractors that are ready as we finalize the details, and they make adjustments in the field based on the conditions. So yes, we are confident that we can do that. These will be, again, field engineered, so we don't have the luxury of spending a lot of time doing detailed engineering plans like a more traditional project. This is very much an all hands on deck, field engineering, designed to the situation, customized based on what we're seeing in the field, and go as quickly as we can.
Are you getting the support from other groups across the country? Because this is a really big issue for this community.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to point out how appreciative I am of our residents. I can only imagine what they're going through, the residents that are most impacted, but also other residents in the area. Again, I can only imagine the difficulties that they're facing, but the patience and the support that our residents have for our teams as we're going about this work. Again, we're so appreciative of our residents, and they tell us things when they see it in the field so that we can send out our geologists and further investigate. So our residents, our constituents, they're just an integral part of our team. They help us with communicating. Leaders in the HOAs help us communicate to the broader audience. We're very grateful for them, and again, we're deeply saddened by what they're going through. We can only imagine what they're facing. We have a team of experts, consultants, partners from the private sector that have been working on this project for us, and they've been treating it as an all-hands-on deck, bringing their best experts with decades of experience in landslides, many of them in this specific landslide, to come up with these solutions and talking amongst each other through a peer review process to try to come up with the best solutions for the city. So I'm very appreciative of our consultants and our contractors who I feel are really putting their hearts into this project and really coming through for the city at our time of great need.
This landslide was there when the city was built, and has the infrastructure built in a way that can handle a landslide like this, or is it just built like any other city?
Well, first I want to make sure that people are clear that this is a localized problem to one local area of the city. This is not a citywide problem. This should not be associated with the entire city of Rancho Palos Verdes or with the entire peninsula. The geologic conditions in this very particular area are unique to just this localized area. I think that's very important for people to know.
Which is a small percentage of the city. What percentage of the city is it? Is it like 5%? Or
that's a good question. I haven't done the math, but it is a small percentage of the city. So I think it's important for people to understand that this is not the entire peninsula, this is not the entire city, this is just the Greater Portuguese Bend landslide complex. I think it's also important to know that a large part of this landslide complex was not moving or dormant, and I'm not sure if I'm using the correct geological term. The city geologist can better explain that. So I think that's just a very important piece of context to take into consideration.
Ramsey Awad, Public Works Director at Rancho Palos Verdes. It was great to have you on California Insider. Hopefully these problems will go away soon.
Thank you for having me, and I hope to come back to talk about the success of the project.
We're covering California issues, as you know. If you want us to cover the stories that are impacting your day-to-day life in California, reach out to me at siamak@californiainsider.com.